Boom. Welcome, everyone, to episode 220 of the FM Marks podcast.
I'm Jay.
And I am the Brainless One.
Yeah.
Very interesting couple of weeks. We did take last week off because you were doing your
I did Tour de Cure, man. 40 miles. I was definitely not feeling up to doing much of anything after that.
My man.
Thank you, sir.
Good job on that 40 miles. I'm accomplished. I was a little disappointed you didn't get the 100 like you did last year.
Well, you know, it is what it is.
I'm kidding. I if you had gotten 100 again this year, I would have been like, damn, Jay, that's impressive. And I'm not easily impressed with anything. But I would have been impressed if you had gotten 100. Because I was last year, you knocking out 100 miles on the Tour de Cure. I was incredibly impressed with that. That's tough.
It is. And you know what? It requires an awful lot of time and preparation. And with what I've got going on in my life right now,
I understand.
A lot of extra time and preparation is not a thing.
But the fact is, you went out there, you did it.
I should have drank a 40 while doing the 40.
Should have had a 40 after the 40.
You know, did end up at a brewery and ended up having a few beers, and that was good.
Very cool. Very cool.
So, but that's why we weren't around last week, and now we'll have a action-packed couple hours of talking pro wrestling this week.
Quite a bit we got to get into this week. Something happened on Monday Night Raw I really don't want to talk about, so we're just going to go on to the next topic.
Woo!
On Wednesday we had the blood and guts. Jesus Christ, yeah. Don't think that's not going to get over. I am the king of getting everything over.
We had Blood and Guts on Wednesday. We had new NXT Women's Tag Team Champions crowned on Tuesday.
Yep.
And Tribal Chief has a new theme song, and the return of his cousin, finally, after what we've been talking about that for like 5-6 months at this point.
We also have a new number one contender for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania Backlash. I don't like the name of that.
And strangely enough, we also have another new number one contender for the Raw Women's Championship. Guess who it is?
Greg the Bunny? Oh, right. Yeah, unfortunately, that is who it is.
Incredible performer, but please.
And just when I thought that I couldn't get any more wrestling in with the 3 hours of Raw on Monday, the 2 hours of NXT on Tuesday, the 2 hours of AEW on Wednesday, the 2 hours of Impact on Thursday, the 2 hours of SmackDown on Friday, and the fact that A&E has been releasing these 2-hour documentaries on all these different wrestling, and I'm one of those ones that I'm all board with documentaries. I love documentaries.
And A&E documentaries and the return of the Dark Side of the Ring.
As we had season 3's premiere happen on Thursday with the part 1 of the Brian Pillman documentary, which I'm excited to see.
And we're going to cover all of that this week. And yes, Benjamin, yes, Tribal Chief, Jimmy will fall in line and will eventually acknowledge him. But I you know what? I don't mind kicking off from there a little bit, where I enjoyed the storyline that they did on SmackDown, encompassing the whole show and bringing in some older elements to showcase Jimmy and his reluctance to, fall in line and, feel like, he and his brother are taking lesser, so the Tribal Chief could get more.
And I thought it was interesting because when we were watching it last night, Nicole had brought up to me, she's like, I guess this is the Roman Reigns episode tonight. And I said, yeah. And I'm like, and I have no problem with it. I'm like, if they're going to tell a really good story, because they have been telling a really good story in regards to the Universal title picture with Roman Reigns and the Paul Heyman and, with Jey Uso. And that was the biggest thing, is that when was Jimmy Uso going to be returning from ACL surgery?
Sure.
And, how many different pay-per-views did we make predictions like, oh, we know Jimmy Uso's coming back tonight. Well, I think Jimmy Uso's going to come back tonight. I really thought it was going to be the Royal Rumble. I really thought it was going to be WrestleMania. I liked the way they did it.
I did too. How, all right, well, I banished one person, we're bringing one person back in the fold. And just like the excitement of Jay seeing him and them hugging it out on TV, but they were wearing different shirts. So you're like, all right, so they're not of the same mind. So yeah. Effin Marks Hall of Famer Shauno chiming in on the messenger chat, and this is great. And I quote from the Iron Sheik: "Happy Saturday and fuck up the Hulk Hogan."
By the way, he made that huge announcement the other day, and I don't even know if he even made the huge announcement or not. But he goes, "I have a major announcement." I said, "Oh my God, it's official! Iron Sheik's coming to WrestleMania 38. It's going to happen. I will get that over." I always do. I get everything over.
Yeah,
I should have been a wrestler.
You should have been.
Not really. I couldn't do a tope suicida to save my life.
Yeah,
I couldn't do a drop kick to save my life. But anyway, to go back to it, they did the perfect time, and I noticed that too. How Jimmy and Jay were actually wearing different shirts, and Jimmy's more in the like
day one is H.
Day one is H. This is all about us. This is where we are. We are the best tag team in WWE. We should be going for the WWE Tag Team Championships. It should be you and I looking out for each other. And and I thought it was interesting because later on the show he did bring up about the whole thing where Roman Reigns basically when he had his I Quit match with Jey Uso, the only reason Jey had quit was because of the fact that Jimmy Uso was the one who was put in the guillotine, and Jey Uso tapped out to save his brother from his cousin, and Jimmy used that as like, why would you associate yourself with him doing all of his dirty work when it could be about us and being the top tag team in WWE again?
Right. So that played out throughout the show, and then it wasn't until the very end where Cesaro starts attacking Roman and attacking Jay that you finally
Jimmy's getting involved.
Jimmy finally gets involved and does, at least temporarily, fall into line with the tribal chief and his family. Again, how this plays out in the long run, we'll see. But I just want to discuss one thing here, something I posted on our Facebook page during the week about Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan, the one who is banished by Roman Reigns from SmackDown. I don't know if that meant all WWE or just SmackDown, but either way, allegedly, last Friday was Daniel Bryan's last contracted day at WWE. Allegedly.
We'll get to that question in a second, Benjamin. I really want to touch base on that, but go ahead, Jay.
This is my belief.
Is this your belief or your tinfoil hat theory?
It's my tinfoil hat theory and my belief at the same time. That Daniel Bryan is currently actually signed to WWE and or is planning to re-sign. But they've let it out there to the dirt sheets that he's no longer under contract. My belief is that within 3 to 6 months, because he needs to have time off TV to make this work, he's going to show up at AEW as Bryan Danielson. And this is going to be, again, my belief, he's going to wrestle as Bryan Danielson and slowly but surely reveal that he has been working as WWE the whole time. They could even pair him with Christian and say, oh yeah, remember how Christian wrestled at Royal Rumble and then a week and a half later he's on AEW? Well, that was part of this planned kind of coup on AEW. But I have the belief that there is such a love for Daniel Bryan, it doesn't matter what company he goes into, he's going to be over. And I think if they're going to, Tony Khan talks about the forbidden door. I believe the forbidden door has been opened, and I think Daniel Bryan is going to be the one to walk through it. But I think it's going to be part of an angle here. But again, I don't think he should show up on TV for
a few months,
several months.
Yeah.
So I would love to see that as part of some sort of invasion angle, and I'd love to see him go against somebody like Kenny Omega, just because I know the match quality would be through the roof. If they happen to be in the Tokyo Dome, that would be a 20-star match.
And if they replace Daniel Bryan with Okada, then it's definitely going to be 87.5 stars.
But, you know, with all of these things being said, better heel right now, Roman Reigns or Kenny Omega?
Do you want to go first? Or you want me to?
Well, you know what? I think I'll just keep rolling here. I prefer the work of Roman Reigns right now, just because I buy in completely to his character in every way, shape, or form. Like, just the air about him, everything about it. Where, I don't know, with Kenny Omega, like, I actually do like the character. I like how he's working it. I like how, you know, it did start the crossover for multiple companies, but as far as something that, for me, more believability, I more have like, I'm more invested in Roman Reigns than I am Kenny Omega. Love or hate, I'm more invested in.
I will say this, and right now, Roman Reigns is hitting on all cylinders. This is the best work we've seen from not just him, but from a lot of wrestlers over the last 20, 30 some odd years. His run right now is very comparable to when Hulk Hogan turned and joined the NWO and became Hollywood Hulk Hogan. He is built perfectly right now because he looks so powerful. He's got a really good mouth guard in Paul Heyman. But the thing is that Roman Reigns, with the character he is now, Paul Heyman's there to help enhance his character to what it is. Because Roman could be doing this without Paul Heyman. I'm convinced of that.
Well, I think Heyman was there at the beginning just to
kind of help
push that along
in the right path of where he needed to go. On the flip side, Kenny Omega seems very cartoonish with his character. I am not a fan of Kenny Omega's character whatsoever. And don't get me wrong, I like Cyrus a lot. I was a fan of his back when he was in ECW. I loved him when he was the Jackal, when he was in WWE back in the 90s.
Jackal.
He's a tremendous wrestling mind. He is definitely somebody who could help out whoever he's going to be helping out. Unfortunately, trying to work with the drizzle shits, dirt face Kenny Omega is not going to do very much for you. So right now, I would say that Roman Reigns is not only just the biggest heel between him and Kenny Omega. I think Roman Reigns is the biggest star in professional wrestling, no matter what wrestling organization you go through.
And just one more thing to put a cap on this is he and Daniel Bryan had one of the best TV matches I think you'll ever see. Like, that could have been the main event of WrestleMania, that match, and everybody would have been like, that was freaking awesome. That was well deserving. Mm-hmm. They put on a great match, very suspenseful. Like, as much as you knew, it's like on Roman Reigns is going to win, but there were moments in the match where you're like going, are they going to mess with us?
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it.
What I will say this too, because like you brought that up about last week's show. Last night's show, it felt kind of like the same thing where like last SmackDown, it felt lackluster minus the main event. And like last night after the first match of the night where we got Cesaro and Seth Rollins to start off as the first match of the night, it seemed like everything else on the card was just crap. It really was. Like, there was no purpose to the Carmella versus Ruby Riott match. Nobody really cares about either one of them, to be honest. And it's a shame because I actually enjoyed watching both of them perform. I mean, they gave us a 10-man tag match. Playa. Which, I mean, was a nice caveat last night. I liked the Teddy Long aspect of it last night because if you don't get put in one-on-one with The Undertaker, you're not doing anything. You're not doing something right. But like the 10-man tag match, I'm like, that's just lazy booking. It's not even like stupid, but it's lazy booking. You got nothing better going on than to put your Intercontinental Champion in the 10-man tag match with the Street Profits, who should be number one contenders for the tag team titles, but that's neither here nor there. But they also had who else?
King Corbin was there.
King Corbin, Sami Zayn, Gable, Otis, and who am I forgetting? Apollo. Apollo Crews, the Intercontinental Champion, and they went up against Big E, and they went up against with the Street Profits and Shinsuke Nakamura. And for the life of me, why am I blanking?
Big E.
And I said Kevin Owens. That's why I forgot about it. It was Captain Cupcake himself. And like that whole match is so pissed me off because Nakamura was in there to eat the pinfall, and I was pissed about that. To King Corbin, and I don't know. It's just like last night the show, like even the Ding Dong Hello with freaking Bailey and Bianca Belair was not very entertaining. Tamina Snuka versus Reginald, it was just it was a very bad show, minus the whole Roman Reigns with the Usos and Paul and Cesaro, and then the Cesaro Rollins match. That was the only good thing about last night. I mean,
and Teddy Long.
And obviously Teddy Long. I mean, even like the fact that we were supposed to get Rey Mysterio versus Dolph Ziggler, and Dolph Ziggler basically shit all over Dominic last night. I loved that. I was laughing my ass off because like he basically was saying things that a lot of wrestling fans and a lot of other people were probably thinking about him.
Right.
So, but like Dominic looked good, but getting in the ring with Dolph Ziggler, I could look good in the ring against Dolph Ziggler.
Right.
But they are setting up, and I really do think that the
WrestleMania Backlash,
I think the Mysterios are going to end up winning the tag team titles there.
Benjamin, dude, you keep on commenting. We that's what we're here for, interaction with you. So no need to apologize for commenting. So, yeah, man. So Benjamin's saying, I'm buying Eva Marie's return, but I mean, she comes back, and if she still sucks, yeah. Why bring her back if she still sucks? I think part of the reason with her before that they wanted to push her so much was that, like,
to raise my blood pressure, I get it.
Right. Well, the thing is even if she's terrible in the ring, like, she got a reaction, and that's all WWE's looking for, is getting a reaction. Now, this is part of one of the fabled matches that I have been asking for so many years, because I know it would cause a complete meltdown for you. I have been talking about Eva Marie versus Nia Jax for, I'd say, at least like 2 or 3 years. And I know that this would be something that would just make you explode. You would explode if this match happens. Now, I don't think we're going to see this match soon, but we are going to see it probably in the next,
of course we're going to see it, Jay. You predicted it, so we're going to get it. We're going to get an Eva Marie versus Nia Jax. Of course we're going to get an Eva Marie versus Nia Jax match. Why wouldn't we? Because because Vince McMahon and WWE and the bucktooth beaver fucker are the only people on this planet that like pissing me off more than anybody else on this planet. So of course Vince McMahon's going to give me the match I really don't want to see, because Eva Marie can't fucking wrestle, and the only person who's worse in the ring than Eva Marie is Nia Jax. So we're going to put the two shits in the fucking ring with each other. And don't even get me started about this. Because I was like, when I saw that shit on Monday, I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me right now. You get rid of Mickie James, who's a GOAT, who's on a lot of people's Rushmore of women wrestling.
Yep.
And you have the Iconics, who you split up, even though you need women tag teams in your women's tag team division.
Yeah.
And they, if anything, they got reactions, and they were entertaining, to say the least. But you released all of them, so you can bring back Eva Marie, who... Ugh. I still have PTSD from when she was in there for her initial run about 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, hell, I thought about that. Like, our podcast started around the time that they actually tried to turn Eva Marie into whatever the fuck they were turning Eva Marie into. And there was many a podcast in that first year of our show where I was melting down on a week-to-week basis because they were doing this stupid shit every single week. And the best part was when they released her and I didn't have to talk about Eva Marie. So now she's back.
And now we get to talk about her.
Why?
Because. So, Benjamin, the thing that makes me so interested in that match, beside it melting down the Brainless One's brain, is specifically, I don't know, maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I have, a soft spot in my heart for shitty wrestling. whether it's going to Hampton Roads Championship Wrestling.
That's the benchmark of shitbag wrestling.
Or whether it's watching Clash of the Champions 13 for the 5,000th time.
Or watching the gimmick battle royal from WrestleMania 17.
Right. Iron Sheik is now ETA 11 months before he gets to the ring. But like, for whatever reason, when I watch shitty matches, like, I'm sorry, Tom Zenk versus Primetime Brian Lee. I mean, you're
Nails
talking
versus El Gigante.
I mean, matches like that, they're so bad that I just have to laugh at them. Like, you know, it's like Botchamania, that the YouTube page became so popular because they were showing off all the shitty stuff that went on. I love stuff like that. I think Eva Marie was made for stuff like Botchamania, but guess what happened this week? Botchamania got kicked off of YouTube
because of AEW.
But it's crazy that after all these years of like
talking about the WWE botches for all those years, and it's AEW. I'm gonna tell you, Jay. The older not really older. The longer AEW has been around, the less and less I like AEW.
You know, I tend to agree with that assessment, but there's enough good there to keep me going back.
No, don't get me wrong. There's aspects about AEW I do enjoy. I love their tag team division. I absolutely love their tag team division. Britt Baker is going to start turning that women's division into not a joke anymore. They have a lot of good. I mean, between her and Chris Statlander and Hikaru Shida and whatever Thunder Rosa shows up and everything, they actually have a chance to
Serena
turn that.
Deeb when she shows up.
You have a chance to turn that women's division into a very viable division. I love their tag team division. I love a lot of the tag teams in that division. And there's guys that I love. Orange Cassidy. I mean, obviously Chris Jericho because he's a fucking goat. I mean, he's the goat of goats, and there he is, the goat over there. I love Hangman Page, and I love the fact that Hangman Page is from here. This the great Commonwealth of Virginia, and he comes into the ring with a beer or a thing of whiskey or whatever, and it's just he's entertaining, and the guy is fucking a great wrestler. And that buckshot lariat, tell me that's not the baddest freaking entrance out there. I love the buckshot lariat, and I love what Cody Rhodes is doing, and I think that what Darby Allin, just Tony Khan, what he has done. For some of the parts of AEW, I actually do enjoy what he's doing. To this day, I still think one of the best shows I've ever watched on any wrestling was the episode they dedicated to Brody Lee. That was so perfectly done. It was better than any of the memorial shows that WWE did for any of their former stars. And that's not even a slight. It's not even a slight on any of those. It's just that's how much better the memorial show for Brody Lee was than the ones for WWE, because they did a great job with Owen Hart. They did a great job with Eddie Guerrero, just to name a couple. Yeah. But for me, the overabundance of stables is bothersome. The fact that it's like, they made it all about they talked about how they're going to make it all about everybody else, but now it's about Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Like, I knew that was going to fucking happen. And it's just, I just think the stables thing is really just starting to bother me because like everybody's in this. When you give QT Marshall his own stable, that's when you know you've got too many stables. I'm still trying to figure out who the fuck QT Marshall is.
Having QT Marshall be the head of a stable is like having Mustafa Ali the head of a stable. I mean, I
think Mustafa Ali
he tried.
Mustafa Ali makes more sense than who the fuck is QT Marshall? He looks like a guy I walk by at freaking Home Depot who's lost trying to find the gardening section so he can get soil for his wife when she's planting flowers. That's what QT Marshall looks like. QT Marshall looks like the guy who mispronounces fajitas when he's at a Mexican spot.
Fajitas.
Yes.
That was one of the things when AEW, probably within the first few months, that I was like, is everybody in a faction? Because it seems like everybody's either in a faction or a friend of a faction. And
Like it's like the best friends in Orange Cassidy. I don't consider that a faction. I just consider them a tag team, and Orange Cassidy
It's their friend.
It's just their friend. And I like it, and I like that Chris Statlander was going to be part of it. So it looks like they're going to be becoming a faction. I love the Dark Order because they came in right out the gate as a faction. Sure. And now all these people now have characters because it used to just be Stu Grayson and Evil Uno with a bunch of guys wearing masks, especially that one guy who threw those horrible punches at the GOAT, Dustin Runnels. But I mean, now that they have like 10 and John Silver and the kids -1 and Anna Jay, I love the Dark Order. The Dark Order is a great faction for them.
Yeah,
they could have just done with that and the whole Kenny Omega thing, and then gave Cody Rhodes the Nightmare Assembles or whatever.
Yeah, Nightmare Family.
That would have been fine. I mean, and even if you had given Taz a stable, I would have been okay with that. But the fact is like it seems like everybody's part of a stable, and there's too many fucking run-ins.
It's like at the end of every match, it's like, well, what's going to run in? Who's going to run in now? Sting is the only person not in the. Sting and Darby Allin are like the only people not in the stable. They pal around, but they're not like a stable.
And the same thing with Lance Archer. Lance Archer's kind of a vagabond. He just kind of shows up wherever the fuck he feels like it. And it's like, this guy was your big free agent acquisition. You made a big deal about him coming in. And it's like they forget. And another thing is like AEW I think they have way too many people. They don't have enough time to showcase all these people. Like I looked at the card for their darks every week, and they have 15 fucking matches on Tuesday Night Dark on YouTube.
So I think one thing that will happen is when they have their second show on TNT, I think they're building up the roster for having more shows. I believe,
but it's like,
15 matches on Tuesday Dark,
and it's just a lot, and it's like, and it's all these different people, and it's like,
and they have high profile. Like Jon Moxley has been on that several times.
Yep,
and it's like
Orange Cassidy has wrestled on there. Hangman Page has wrestled on there.
It's great that they're trying to get the higher profile people, so people will be like, oh, I got to tune in for this thing. It's not like WWE main event where,
it's Ricochet versus Mustafa Ali every week.
Or as we got this past week, Jinder Mahal versus Jeff Harvey, where Jeff Harvey eats a pinfall.
And Jinder Mahal doesn't have hair.
But,
But hey, the Jinder's back, so I'll take that as a victory. Anyway, we get it.
So,
That's two former world heavyweight champions fighting on main event. How about that?
And Jeff Hardy, with all he's been through lately, it's like, yeah, he probably doesn't need to be on TV. And my hope for Jeff Hardy at this point is like this does not cause him to spiral into old habits, right? But it's just strange that like, all right, we got these guys on main event. Like Jeff Hardy a decade ago was like, a little over a decade ago was, I would say, the biggest star in professional wrestling. When he and Orton and he and Edge had their feuds, I mean, I think it was maybe Royal Rumble 2008 or maybe 2009 when he did the spot where he jumped off, 20, 30 feet up. And like, I was like, Jeff Hardy's finally going to win the WWE championship. And he didn't. And then, a couple days later, he's been popped again for stuff.
I still remember when he was world heavyweight champion, and I want to say it was a ladder match. He had just wrestled with Edge, and CM Punk, who had just won the Money in the Bank for a second time, was cashing in on Jeff Hardy. I laughed my ass off. Everybody else booed, like everybody in the arena booed when CM Punk came out to cash in on Jeff Hardy, because CM Punk, who was the face, was turning on Jeff Hardy. And it's like, and CM Punk beat Jeff Hardy to become world heavyweight. I laughed my ass off. I never liked Jeff Hardy. I'm sorry. I might be in the minority on that. I've never been a Jeff Hardy fan.
By the way, that year, feud of the year. The matches easily. They had were incredible.
I just thought it was funny because like Punk went in there as the world heavyweight champion and just kind of like manhandled Jeff Hardy. And then the Undertaker kind of went in there and just kind of like, he treated CM Punk the way that they like how it looked like with The Miz, how The Miz always looked outmatched in every wrestling match for the most part with everybody he got in the ring with. Like, oh yeah, I don't see the Big Show and The Miz as a real thing, or Brock Lesnar. Like Miz ain't getting in the ring with Brock Lesnar. Miz ain't getting in the ring with Batista. Oh, he could definitely fight Rey Mysterio though. But like, I just remember that because I laughed my ass off when Punk took the title from Jeff Hardy.
Yeah.
That's great to see. I am happy to see Jinder Mahal back. I will say that.
And yeah,
and they put that Indian tag team with him too.
Yeah, they changed their names. I have it in the notes somewhere. Veer and Shanky. They used to be a team. Indus Sheer, I believe it was what they were called in NXT. So apparently they wanted them over the Singh brothers because, I mean, the Singh brothers were there to get thrown by Brock Lesnar into the 37th row. But because there's no fans, there's nobody there to possibly catch the Singh brothers from the cannon.
We need Jinder off a main event, back on Monday Night Raw, back in the forefront. We need another Punjabi prison match.
I think the next, if there's NXT India, I think we're gonna get another Punjabi prison match, or if they do another one of those super shows and they actually go to India, I think we'll see it there. I'd love it. So,
Jade Cargill winning the AEW Women's World Championship. I can see that happening at some point. Right now, I think
it's Britt Baker.
Britt Baker. It's Britt Baker and nobody else.
Stone Cold, lead pipe lock. Britt Baker is winning the
AEW Women's Championship
at All Out.
And if I'll tell you right now, I might actually have one of my predictions. Speaking of new champions, possibly in the foreseeable future, it looks like with Orange Cassidy going up against Pac. And the winner of that is going to be fighting the Derp, Dr. Derp himself, Kenny Omega, for the AEW World Title at what is it, Double or Nothing, or is it All Out?
Oh wait, you're right, Double or Nothing. All Out's in September.
Yeah, Double or Nothing at the end of this month. And I said that's how you would do it. I said this is how I would book it. And I'll tell you if I'm doing this, because I'm telling you right now, if Orange Cassidy takes the title from Kenny Omega, fucking the next champion after him is going to be. MJF, no question in my mind. MJF is on. He's firing on all cylinders right now. He might be the best thing that AEW has going right now. I don't care what. Fuck Kenny Omega. Gotta live the gimmick, right? Can't. It's not.
It's not a gimmick.
It's a lifestyle, baby.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's. I mean, I could see a Jade Cargill, potentially win the title at some point. But right now, I've never been more confident in anything in my life than the fact that Britt Baker is going to be the next AEW Women's Champion.
And she's not going to be a short-term champion. She's going to have that for a little while. Yeah.
Some WWE superstars against AEW.
I mean, honestly, I brought it up before. Daniel Bryan against Kenny Omega, I think would be, and he'll be called Bryan Danielson. Like I said, I think he's going to be part of a quasi-invading faction of AEW. But if you're talking like think Roman Reigns against John Moxley. Oh yeah, not Dean Ambrose. John Moxley.
Oh, that would be just
because cool. He's a similar character, but he's different than what he was as Dean Ambrose. There's stuff like that, but thinking of like good talkers like Eddie Kingston going against
The Miz. The Miz is a great talker. I don't care.
Even if you just had that as like the wrestling match might not be the greatest, but like
I've watched some Eddie Kingston matches. He is not that great in the ring. He's serviceable, which is the best way I can put his wrestling
him
career.
Against Moxley in that I Quit match that's perfect for him.
That's different.
That's perfect.
But like a technical wrestling match, don't expect Eddie Kingston to be anywhere near the top of Dave Meltzer's 5-star rating.
You know what I want to see? I want to see Kenny Omega versus Rey Mysterio.
Rey Fenix versus Rey Mysterio.
That would be nice too.
Hangman Page versus Randy Orton. Hangman Page versus Sheamus.
Yeah, in a drinking match.
Yeah, the Usos versus the Lucha Brothers. The Young Bucks versus the New Day. If I'm gonna go, Cody Rhodes versus just about anybody at this point. Rhodes versus Rollins, Rhodes versus Finn Balor, Rhodes versus Daniel Bryan. Edge versus Christian Cage.
Yeah. But there are so many good matches, dream matches that you can set up.
Tully Blanchard versus Ric Flair.
Wait. Not the worst idea. Tessa Blanchard versus Charlotte Flair.
I think that would
with
be...
Tully and Rick in the respective corners if Tessa eventually does sign with AEW, which that was rumored. I don't know if that's really true or not, but we'll see.
And her husband are possibly signing with AEW.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, I will lose all the respect I have for AEW and Tony Khan if they do sign Tessa Blanchard.
Well, I mean, it would be kind of going against all the things that they said that they were not going to do as a company.
You're not going to associate yourselves with, first of all, Hulk Hogan's never going to go to AEW. Hulk Hogan was, and always will be WWE. And let me tell you something, brother. You have nothing to worry about with Hogan jumping to that ship.
You know, he went to TNA for that bit because he thought, well, one, like,
he wanted money.
He wanted money, and two, like, I mean, Hogan has expressed a lot of remorse. He was like, my last match should not be in TNA or Impact Wrestling. It should have been in a WWE ring, and now my back's too messed up and my body's too messed up for me to even do that. So
I told you how you got to book it. I mean, nobody ever listens to the Brainless One, though.
They could book it. Hogan could be in a gimmick battle royal, and they could treat him like the Sheik.
Hulk Hogan needs to him and Iron Sheik just needs to go at it at WrestleMania 38, and all be forgiven.
Right,
but it would make them definitely look like hypocrites, and just like, well, you said that you're not going to associate with people who are associated with the race situation, because Hulk Hogan had that thing come out with him with saying the N-word and all that stuff, and you're going to distance yourself from him, and the fact that his wife, his ex-wife, you don't want her being part of this and everything. But Tessa Blanchard comes out and speaks negatively about all these different types of stereotypes and all these different types of people, and you're going to bring her in. Why? Because she's younger and she could actually wrestle instead of Hulk Hogan.
Right.
I'm sorry. It would just make you look stupid. Like, I don't give a shit what the fuck WWE does. I mean, if WWE signs Tessa Blanchard, I don't give a fuck. Vince McMahon would hire a murderer if he could. I mean, he did. He
kept one out of he kept one out of jail.
So I mean, Vince McMahon is not going to be winning any Humanitarian of the Year awards for anything that he has done. So that's why him signing Tessa Blanchard is not that big of a deal. Where Tony Khan is trying to make his company seem like they're all high and mighty and all this stuff, and we're better than all that stuff, and then sign Tessa Blanchard.
All right. So Benjamin chiming in saying, what is it with Mustafa Ali kind of sitting there and kind of talking bad about WWE? Honestly, I believe this is still an extension of his Retribution character, where part of Retribution was we're not getting good enough. So we're going to talk about the machine. We're going to talk against the machine. And I think part of it is also frustration for him because, you give him Retribution, but you just book. You kind of set up this faction, and you're like going, all right, maybe they're trying to make them into something. And then in the first week when they lose to the Hurt Business, you end up like, well, I guess this is an effing joke. And, I think he did the best he could to bring the Retribution storyline forward in a good way, but they just booked them so terribly. And, I think the only saving grace was Slapjack.
Well, I mean, it's also looking like Dio Madden and Donovan Dijakovic are gonna rebound very well to actually have a somewhat pretty productive career going forward, as they're no longer part of it and not wearing the mask. So I think they're gonna be fine. I think Mia Yim's gonna be fine. Just keep Shan Thorne as fucking slapjack on SmackDown, or I'm gonna be pissed. Or it's a lost cause.
But I could understand why Ali would be kind of have a little bit of a,
Well, that and the fact that he was the way that was making it seem like was they were booking for him and Kofi Kingston at WrestleMania this year,
and then
they were like, oh, we're gonna not do this, and we're gonna break up Retribution. We're gonna shove you guys in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle
That's
Royal. That's
not-
not even going to be on the card for WrestleMania,
even though they called it WrestleMania SmackDown,
which is even crazier considering the fact that we didn't even get the SmackDown tag team titles defended at WrestleMania either, but we're getting them at WrestleMania Backlash.
Speaking of WrestleMania and tag team championships, we had AJ Styles finally reappear on Monday Night Raw, and I did enjoy how he explained why you haven't seen him around. Oh, me and Omos have been out partying since WrestleMania, and that's why we haven't been around. And New Day comes out, kind of has they trade back and forth, and New Day talking about, hey, we're 11-time champs because we took this seriously, and they end up having a tag team match for the Raw Tag Team Championships, and you know what, Omos and AJ, as they should, look strong and win. But I loved how AJ was like, oh yeah, we've been out partying for the last few weeks, and I thought it was a good way to reintroduce them and be like, I'm guessing Vince McMahon probably gave him a few weeks off to, hey, just be home. But yeah, good stuff.
AJ Styles is a GOAT at the end of the day.
He is.
I love watching AJ work. He's one of my all-time favorites. He should be in my Rushmore, but he won't be in my Rushmore because if somebody's going to be out of my Rushmore and get replaced, Randy Orton will probably take that spot because Randy's the GOAT-to.
And speaking of which,
bro,
I kind of like the RK Bro.
I fucking love RK Bro.
Yeah,
I love it. I love stupid. You know me. I love stupid shit, and this is the stupidest of the stupidest. And I will say this speaks a lot because Randy Orton did want to work with Matt Riddle, so I'm 100% on board. I want to smoke with both of them. Are you kidding me? You imagine the two of them in RVD in the back. Oh my god, that would be my dream foursome to smoke with is Randy Orton, Matt Riddle, and Rob Van Dam. Oh my god, that just sounds like wonderfulness.
So like the setup that they had to kind of bring them together was a little bit silly, but like, having Elias and Jackson Riker like throwing tomatoes, and they were going to throw tomatoes in general direction of was it Kofi?
I think so.
And Xavier Woods, and they end up hitting Orton, and Orton gets all. And then I love that Matt Riddle is wearing Evel Knievel garb while on a scooter. As much as there are things that certainly rub me the wrong way with how he seems like he disrespects a bunch of people. I enjoyed the hell out of this, and like the misfits and mismatch, and like the joy, like when he was like during the match when Orton was about to do the DDT with the drape rope, and you see like Matt Riddle like yeah, like a little kid like going, I can't wait to see this, I can't wait to see this, I can't wait to see this, and I think this, just might even be better than Rated RKO.
Stop.
I think it could be. But I did enjoy the heck out of this, and apparently this is something that's going to go forward.
I want them to win the tag team titles. I so want them to win the tag. I thoroughly enjoy it. It was one of those situations where it was like you never knew that you wanted something until you realized it was there, and then you were like, fuck, I really want this. That's what I want. I want RK Bro to win the tag team titles. And I want them to do it with like blunts in their hands. I need this in my life. Because it's funny. Because how funny is it? Like nobody gets, like some of these people don't even get how funny and ironic it is that Randy Orton, who is a multiple-time person who has failed the wellness policy for marijuana, and then Matt Riddle, who literally got kicked out of UFC because of marijuana, are a tag team. How is that not? Seriously.
Yeah.
The only way it'd be better if it was Riddle and Rob Van Dam.
But I enjoyed the heck out of that.
I did too. I
really
did.
Of this. All right. So Benjamin asking about if we think Bianca Belair will end up being the longest reigning SmackDown Women's Champion.
Probably not.
Maybe eventually cumulative. She might be. She is not going to outlast Bayley's run where she had it for 380 days. I think she'll beat Bayley, and I think she'll continue going on. I think at least for a few more months, maybe till SummerSlam.
My guess is she'll drop it by the Royal Rumble is my guess.
Okay.
I don't see like a year-long reign because a lot of times like when they do stuff like that where they give somebody like a long-standing reign like that we usually will see the title like quasi hot potato a little bit after that.
Right.
And I'm hoping that it's a situation where she deserves the title for at least 6 months. I will say that. She deserves the title for at least 6 months. So anytime between like Survivor Series and the Royal Rumble, if she drops the title there, I think that's about as good of a spot as you can with her. Like if she drops it at like next month at like Money in the Bank, I'm going to be pissed.
Well, one thing I've noticed is with the primary titles lately, they've treated them with much more care and respect. You know, it used to be more hot potato-y. Somebody would have the title for a month or two and then, be gone. But they've now had them many people have extended reigns with this. Pardon the pun. Yeah. But I mean, like I said a couple weeks ago, I don't see Roman Reigns losing that title for possibly years, unless like he gets into like a triple threat match and somebody else gets pinned. But even so, then he would no longer be the head of the table. I don't see him losing that title anytime soon.
I do.
I just don't.
I could feel it.
The only possibility to me is Brock Lesnar coming back.
I got a feeling Cesaro is going to take the title from him. I don't know why. I think it's just like I'm naive, and I actually think that they're going to do something because and right now, I mean, the way that they're booking Roman Reigns, him dropping the title now is pretty silly, and it would not make any sense. But like just like the die-hard wrestling fan inside of me, I want Cesaro as champion in the worst possible way. That if he were to take the title from Roman Reigns, I would actually cry because I would be so happy for Cesaro, just like I was for Kofi Kingston a couple years ago at WrestleMania when he won the title, and I had tears rolling down my cheeks. How happy I was! Tear in my eye. This is the greatest day of my life. Woo! But I really just, for whatever reason, I got this feeling that they're finally going to pull the trigger on the Cesaro thing, and it's because of the fact that Paul Heyman has a lot to say of what happens with Cesaro because he's worked with Cesaro before. Paul Heyman's trying to help utilize some of these other people going forward. And, like now that we're getting a returning hipster Aleister Black now, so he's going to be getting some television time. And look at what's happened with Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews was the guy that was tremendous in the ring, but that's all he was. He was
no
like,
character. He
was like Rocky Road ice cream in the ring, and he was vanilla ice cream on the microphone in character-wise. Now he's got a character. Now he's entertaining, and I actually enjoy watching Apollo Crews because he's not just some bum. By the way, last night that was great when he was sitting there and he was like, "I'm here with King Corbin here," and he's talking up Corbin, and then he goes and he talks about Otis and Chad Gable and everything, and then he just kind of looks at Sami Zayn and doesn't say anything, and I'm like.
Brilliant.
I
Brilliant.
loved that. I love Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn is killing it right now. If Roman Reigns is the head dog right now, and no pun intended on that one either.
The big dog.
But like if Roman Reigns is at the top of the game and he is numero uno, right now, character-wise, Sami Zayn's number 2. And it's not even close. I'm sorry. Sami Zayn is absolutely killing this. He is killing this like I'm a freaking this whack job. Like Sami Zayn should be standing at the end of an off-ramp or an on-ramp. No, an off-ramp, I'm sorry, with a sign that says, "Our time is coming." Just the way he's dressed like that, because he looks like one of those guys at the end of an off-ramp.
Should it say, "Your time is up, my time is now"?
You can't see me.
Brushing.
By the way, is it ever is that joke with Cena like we can't see him? Is that ever gonna like not be funny?
No. I mean, that picture with him and Macho Man all those years ago.
My favorite was there was this girl who was like, this girl went to prom with John Cena. And it's like that poor girl went to the prom by herself.
what? Matt Teo.
Do we have a picture of Manti Te'o's girlfriend Lene and John Cena? Because it probably doesn't exist. You can't see them both.
Like I said, I'm convinced that, that's where little Jimmy came from, because R-Truth's childhood hero, John Cena, you can't see him. And that's where little Jimmy came from. His imaginary friend, little Jimmy.
Wow.
I'm just trying to put two and two together. Speaking of which, where has R-Truth been? I haven't seen a lot of him lately.
I haven't either.
I mean, there's nothing, you know what? More R-Truth, better.
Yeah.
So
I'd put him on Raw, SmackDown, NXT, main event. Hell, have him go to AEW. Who gives a shit? Just have him show up at AEW one week as R-Truth and just challenge. Hey,
where's John Cena?
Kenny Omega, I challenge you for the Universal Championship at Backlash WrestleMania. This is AEW truth.
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Good times. So. Man, we've been jumping all around.
Yeah.
I actually kind of enjoy the ADHD version of this show that we've been doing. It's good.
Yeah, Benjamin.
Yeah, if we're ever in whatever area you are, I mean, we've talked with Gags the Clown, F and Mark's Hall of Famer, Gags the Clown, about possibly meeting up at some point. So,
yeah.
If we're ever in the area, or if if we end up at WrestleMania some year and you're at WrestleMania, and we'd always love to hang out with people.
I'd love to do WrestleMania next year, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot going on between the two of us in the next, several months and
6 months.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So, good times.
Yeah.
So another thing that happened this week that I'm looking to see what happens with it. But we had the official breakup of Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin.
It was inevitable at the end of the day. It was inevitable. Once they took them away from the Hurt Business, and I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the Hurt Business going forward. I had a feeling that Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin were going to go their separate ways. I'm curious to see where this is going to lead to, because it's like before he was in the Hurt Business, Cedric Alexander was kind of like in that area where Mustafa Ali and Ricochet are kind of in right now, where they were bouncing between main event and like having
catering
matches and catering on Raw. So I'm curious to see what happens with Cedric Alexander going forward.
I liked his promo after the match.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was spirited and showed a lot of fire. And like when he was like, they didn't kick me out of the Hurt Business, they kicked you out because you were the one weighing us down. But even Shelton after that, he's like, you know what? You know why I've been in this business for so long? Because
I'm the gold standard, obviously.
Right.
And I look like
no
Cisco.
stopping me now.
And when I had the gold hair, I looked like Cisco.
But he talked about knowing how to work with people and work within the system, and and he was like going, yeah, I brought Cedric up. Cedric was doing nothing before me, and then all of a sudden he came into something, and now he thinks he's better than me. I think this is going to be something that actually it's a feud that will play out on Raw, because it unfortunately it's just not a big enough deal to end up on WrestleMania Backlash.
No, but I could see like it being like a Money in the Bank like pre-show match, because you're already going to have a lot of people on the rest of the card.
Right.
So I could see that being a situation. That's the best they're going to get out of that. And it'll be like when they broke up JTD and Shad Gaspard, where they had the one match at one pay-per-view, and neither one of them did dick after that. So
right. JTG still got a paycheck for like another 5 years after that. And then he was finally released. He had like the Bo Dallas treatment for a while.
Yeah, I remember that. But like they got rid of Shad Gaspard rather quickly, and then they just kept JTG, who was like wrestling a main event and just collecting a paycheck to do nothing. So,
right. But Cedric, I think he has significant upside. Whether or not, I don't think Vince sees him as like a top main event level person, but I think he could be a very solid mid-card dude, or I think honestly better yet, go back to NXT.
Yep.
and be part of that division. You know, have him have matches against like Kushida, Jordan Devlin, or anybody like that, and allow him to do what he does best. But I mean, I did like his mic work on Monday, and if he could keep on exercising that muscle, so to speak, I think it'd be great. So
I'd like to see Cedric Alexander and Johnny Gargano go at it.
Absolutely.
I think they'd be an entertaining match.
Absolutely. So,
but we'll see how that goes going forward.
Yeah. So, all right. Another interesting thing that happened on Raw this week. So Angel Garza had a match against Drew Gulak. The match was fine. The setup for it was interesting. It was the end of the match where I was like, Angel Garza put a rose down his butt. He put a rose down Drew Gulak's butt. I was like, what did I just see? He like opened up his tights and put a rose down there, and then I think he kicked him. If
Jay,
I'm remembering right, he kicked him there, and I'm like,
Jay, I just want you to know I was trying to not remember how that happened on Monday, and yet here we are on Saturday talking about what I witnessed on Monday that I didn't want to talk about or kind of remember that it even happened on Monday. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I mean, it was bad enough, you know, with the fact that the worst thing in WWE ever happening on Monday, but they had to give me that too.
Speaking of Monday Night Raw,
that sucks.
Yes, we did have one Charlotte Flair returning yet again, and also once again getting inserted into the main event picture. And so this decision was brought on by Sonya Deville and was something that was not apparently, talked about with Adam Pearce, which caused some stuff.
I got a feeling that Sonya Deville is going to end up running one show and Adam Pearce is going to end up running the other show. Although as much as I would like to see that, I would much rather see Sonya Deville get back in the ring because I was actually one of her fans when she was wrestling. I enjoyed watching her because I've been following her since she was down at NXT when she was Daria something else, whatever her name was. Right. And then she became Sonya Deville. And I think she's great. I think she's really good in the ring. She's getting a lot better on the microphone. I think she has a chance to actually be a star in the women's division. But as of right now, what they're doing with her is actually entertaining because she adds a different element. And I know that WWE is high on her because if they weren't high on her, she would be eating sloppy joes in the back with freaking Cassius Ohno.
Right.
Who I know that is not even collecting a paycheck from WWE anymore, but they're afraid to take him out of catering. Because he's already mauled enough meatloaf back there that they're like, we can't afford this anymore. Which I heard was the reason why they fired him was because it wasn't because of his salary. It was because they were spending too much money on food. And
food budget was, astronomical. Yeah. All right.
Between him and Kevin Owens eating cupcakes.
I do like what they're doing with Sheamus, where like basically anybody who talks about that they're going to challenge Sheamus in this open challenge, he just goes and beats the crap out of him beforehand. But he had a match against Mansoor, who officially signed
main roster debut.
And he and Sheamus were having a great match, but because Sheamus beforehand beat the holy hell out of why am I blanking on his name right now? Give me a second.
Angel Garza, not Angel
Humberto Carrillo. Carrillo comes out and trying to get revenge against Sheamus. So Mansoor looked good, and definitely there was a point near the end of the match where like Sheamus had blood on him, and I don't know if it was from him or Mansoor was bleeding, but again, just I enjoy Sheamus's style so much because I like when it looks like two guys beating the holy heck out of each other, and that's what it always does with Sheamus. So. I enjoyed this.
Lobster head, a careless man who can wind up dead. Sorry.
Yeah.
They need to bring that. If they bring that back, all be forgiven in WWE.
Will that be on? So, one thing the Brainless One finished off.
So I know a couple weeks ago.
Give me a second. I'm gonna. No. You do your thing. I'm saying, give me a second. I'll be back. I gotta go and get a thing.
Okay. So I remember in the last episode we did on 219, I had mentioned that I was going to be doing a tournament to determine what was the worst moment but the worst gimmick in WWF/WWE history. And I actually came up with 64 wrestlers in groups and tag teams. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And we had a who's of people between Ludwig Borga and Mantar and Bastion Booger,
Giant Gonzalez
and Kazarni and Duke Drosy and the Mean Street Posse and you name it. I had 64. We started off with 64 a couple weeks ago, and we got it all the way down. And in the most fitting way possible, the finals was actually a tie, and I actually had to go to overtime because if I had not done that and I picked the winner myself, I can only imagine what the backlash would have been. But after
I see what you did.
Yes, I did.
See what you did.
Yeah.
Are you going to have WrestleMania backlash?
Happy coincidence. But the 64 started, 63 were down, and only one person or team survived. And thanks to everybody who voted, I know I did.
The
winner of the worst gimmick in WWF/WWE history went to Santina, not Santino, Santina Marella, for his appearance dressing up as a woman at WrestleMania 25 and being crowned Miss WrestleMania. You all decided that instead of a man who was half man, half minotaur, or a guy who was a garbage man, or a stable of a bunch of guys who personify what Greenwich, Connecticut is, or Kazarni, whatever the fuck that is, or a Bastion Booger, or a guy who repossesses cars, or a team called 3 Minute Warning, or Retribution. Even it was Santino in the dark cloud that was what he has basically destroyed the women's division 12 years ago for his performance at WrestleMania in the Women's Battle Royal to be crowned Miss WrestleMania. Just that travesty in its own self was justified. And my favorite part about that too, Jay, was when I was doing it and I was doing all the seedings and I made Santina a 1 seed. And I remember looking at the bracket and I was running it by our friend Corey. And I said, Corey, you know that Santina's going to win this thing, right? He goes, oh, he should. I said, no matter how shitty all these gimmicks are, I'm like, Santina's going to win this because it's fucking stupid. Of all the dumb things that WWE has ever done, this is the dumbest fucking thing Vince McMahon has ever done. And that's saying a lot because he had Katie Vick as a storyline.
He had Kazarni.
He had Mae Young give birth to a hand. And yet a dude dressed up like a woman and winning a women's battle royal. The irony of it all, too, Jay, was that Santina won that tournament for me days after Bruce Jenner said that trans women should not be in women's sports. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. Oh, timing couldn't have been any more perfect.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Caitlyn Jenner. I think that's what
Caitlyn.
Its name.
Yeah.
Former Olympian and U.S. hero Bruce Jenner, who was once upon a time crowned the greatest athlete from the state of Connecticut.
Greatest athlete in the world because he won decathlon. He's not the great.
First of all, you could say what you want to say. He never won an Olympic gold medal with a broken fucking neck. There is no greater American hero than Kurt fucking Angle, man. He is the goat of goats, man. I love Kurt Angle. He is. Oh, it's true. It's damn true. Kurt Angle is the greatest American to ever live.
Okay.
Second greatest.
Okay.
Teddy Roosevelt was the greatest American to ever live.
Okay.
My favorite president of all time.
Yeah.
Second is Donald Trump. WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump.
All right.
Anyway, so yeah, that was so that was the whole tournament. So I was actually hoping that I'm actually going to probably go on our Facebook page again. I'm probably going to go on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm going to come up with I as draining as it was the first couple of rounds. Like once I got to the Sweet 16, like the excitement came in, and I was like, I really want to see who's going to win this, and I got more excited. So I am going forward. I am still going to do more tournaments.
Now, is one of them going to be best theme song? And that's what when you talk about Sheamus's old theme. Like, I'm sure that'll be in there because you love that.
You and I discussed it before the show, like, because I said that I want to do, because one of the ones I plan on doing is I want to do a WCW Shitty Gimmicks one, because Vince McMahon isn't the only dumb fuck to come up with stupid gimmicks. I mean, between Vince Russo and Ole Anderson and who the hell else was?
Bischoff,
Eric Bischoff,
even Dusty Rhodes.
There was one.
Dusty Rhodes came up with Oz. Vinny Vegas.
Oh man, like what was that?
Diamond Dallas Page came up with like he had like 15 gimmicks in 1 year. He was trying everything. Like none of it got over.
But I am planning on doing a WCW shit gimmicks one, and as much as I put up a stink, the Disco Inferno will end up being in this tournament as well. I think I'm going to do like a greatest tag teams in wrestling tournament.
Greatest dancer of all time, Alex Wonderkin, the Disco Inferno. Nicole would enjoy this. Fandango.
Nicole, if you're watching, I'm going to rig it so that Fandango wins a tournament that you were going to vote on.
And, we got the Funkadactyls. They could be in the greatest, greatest dancers of all time. Flash Funk.
Flash Funk was another good one. Yep. I mean, we could do a greatest dancers one. I want to have fun with it. I want to have some serious ones, like a greatest tag teams, a greatest entrance song, maybe even like a greatest gimmick one where the Undertaker will be in there, and Kane would have to be in there.
Kane!
Dude Love would have to be in there, and like greatest gimmicks of all time. Maybe I'll do something like that. I might do one that pays homage to ECW. Any suggestions that you all have for tournaments for like that going forward, please, put them in. I'm always looking for suggestions. Hell, I might even, we were joking about doing a possible greatest wrestling announcers of all time, where we'd have to make Sean, F and Mark's Hall of Famer, Sean O, the #1 overall seed in that one. And somehow he's going to have to beat Howard Finkel and Gary Michael Capetta to win the title of the greatest ring announcer of all time.
Right.
But yeah, anything you guys want to talk about or you guys want to do about tournaments for that, please. I'm open to all suggestions. I mean, if I had enough people, I would do the greatest F and Mark's Hall of Famer tournament, but we all know that Dixie would win that.
Yeah. All right. So NXT for this week, there wasn't like what I would consider, again, a ton of like things that are like huge building blocks going forward. But again, part of my thing with NXT is I appreciate the fact that it's not always the top players every week. You get to build up, the folks that are down below. But they did have a part this week where like it was like Karrion Kross, Pete Dunne, Kyle O'Reilly, and Finn Balor all in the ring, talking about how they wanted to go against Karrion Kross next. Title. I mean, it's starting to smell like there's going to be a fatal four-way. And, I do have a slight bit of a problem, not a huge problem, with Pete Dunne being in this scene, that he lost a match. I think it was against Balor to be the #1 contender. He definitely lost to Balor when Balor had the title, but he had another opportunity and he lost. And now, he lost to he beat Kushida, and
he lost to Kyle O'Reilly to get a shot at Finn Balor.
There we go. That's what it was. We go. So like,
but you know me, I'm all about Pete Dunne. Are you kidding me?
But
he's already kind of been put into the position to replace Sheamus as my favorite wrestler. It makes too much sense. But anyway,
I think we're going to end up with a fatal four-way at some point with these 4 competitors, or we're going to have a triple threat match to determine the next #1 contender coming up for going against Karrion Kross. And I mean, honestly, you could sign me up for any of these matches. And it's going to be a fun match, a good match, great match. And going forward, personally, it's Kyle O'Reilly's time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want them to take the title off of Cross, and I don't think they will. I think they're going to make O'Reilly chase for a while.
Oh, I agree. Even
though, like, they built him up to a certain level, O'Reilly's going to take a little while before he actually gets that breakthrough. And honestly, this is just my belief. I think his breakthrough for winning the title should be against Adam Cole.
Agreed.
I think
it should be.
But Cole won't have the title, at least for a little while, because, again, Karrion Kross should have it for a little bit before somebody takes it from him.
One of the things that you said that you enjoy about NXT is that it's not everybody's in the forefront every single week, and that other people get an opportunity to shine on most weeks. There is, though, one faction in particular that, as much as I enjoy that NXT gives other people all these opportunities, if I'm always that type that's like, well, if you're entertaining enough and you're good enough to be on TV every single week, I'm going to want to see you every single week. And right now, for me, that group or stable that I think of is The Way. This whole thing with Johnny Gargano has done so well since James E. Cornette said that Johnny Gargano is not an entertaining character. He's a great wrestler with no personality. And now he's got a personality.
And the thing was, I would even have argued with Cornette back then that, like, at that point, Gargano was showing personality. And it's like, are you even keeping up with the show?
I think that kind of lit a fire under his ass, which was probably the best thing that Cornette could have done. And don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect. Certain things that Cornette says, I really just kind of like, I can't, like, I don't understand why somebody would do it. I do respect what Cornette is and what he has done in this wrestling business. Because, like, I always talk about you being the wrestling encyclopedia. That guy is the wrestling encyclopedia, dictionary, and thesaurus all wrapped into one.
Yes,
that man is very, very intelligent when it comes to professional wrestling. The problem with him is he gets stuck in his old ways, and it's not always 1988 James E. Cornette. You just kind of got to get used to the flippy wrestlers as opposed to guys like Big John Studd and Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan every single week. But anyway, to go back to The Way, I enjoy this. Johnny Gargano has done a great job with this. Austin Theory has been a great addition to this thing. Even Candice LeRae has really developed into it because she, more so than Johnny months ago, Candice actually was she was great in the ring, but she had a little bit more of a character and a little bit more of a personality than her husband did. And now we get to see that side of Johnny. Now we get to see her kind of like in a different light. And even Indy Hartwell has done a fantastic job with this, considering the fact that it's the fact that she's part of The Way and the fact that she has an unhealthy obsession with Dexter Lumis. And it looks like they're going to start going with that storyline moving forward. But
with all that being said,
they ended up Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae ended up fighting Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon for the Women's Tag Team Champions. And lo and behold, we now have new NXT Women's Tag Team Champions, as Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell are now the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions. I love it. I really do.
I have a problem with it just because of how these championships have been treated early on. What should have happened is, like,
first of all,
either they should have had Ember and Shotzi win them right away. And lose them now,
which I would have been okay with.
But like, because like they gave the championship away instead of saying, all right, whoever wins the Dusty Classic is the champion. They sit there and have them win the Dusty. Mercedes Martinez and
Raquel Gonzalez.
Dakota
Kai win the Dusty Rhodes Classic.
Only to lose to
in such a shit way too. By the way, I don't even want to talk about that. To me, that's going to be something that's going to be talked about later on this year when we do our award show in December of like shitty, retarded things that WWE's done, because that was fucking stupid.
Having them losing to Nia and Shayna, and then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, because of this, and this, we're just going to give you
NXT titles.
And this was only a couple weeks later.
And then you're going to defend the titles, and your first defense of the titles, you're going to lose them.
but I don't like the way that they again, the beginning of the bookings of this, it's been bad. I have zero problem with the way. I love the way. They should have just treated the NXT Women Tag Team Championship with more respect.
Agreed.
But we'll see what this does for Dexter Lumis. Maybe it lights him up a little bit for Indy Hartwell, for her sake.
And typically I'm with you with like, there's nothing in this world really in wrestling wise that just
the hot potato.
The hot potato of the title really just like, I know like your biggest thing is champions losing clean in a non-title match, and for me it's the hot potato of the championships.
So there was that, and then
but in this situation I'm okay with it.
Okay,
I'll make an exception this time just because I'd rather them have the titles than.
The one thing I'm going to say about this, for me, and my ending statement on this, let them have a long title run.
Agreed. It's the way to go.
One more thing I do want to say to close out at least my thoughts on NXT. Cameron Grimes and the $1 Million Man. Cameron Grimes just sat there saying he wanted his VIP access to I forget what the restaurant was that he was going to, and they wouldn't let him in. And he kept on doing this thing where like the bouncer was this really tall dude. Clearly, it's like somebody from NXT who's at the training in the performance center, but Cameron Grimes kept on saying, maybe you couldn't hear me from all the way up there, and is like jumping up, shouting his name. And he's like going, yeah, you're not on the list. Yeah, you're not on the list. And then you see a limo pull up, and $1 Million Man steps out and just kind of said, why get access when you could just buy the whole building? Oh, and I'll leave you with one more thing. And then did the laugh and exited the scene. It was beautiful.
Ted DiBiase to this day is my favorite heel of all time. I love Ted DiBiase. Just perfect for professional wrestling back in the 80s and the early 90s. He was the perfect heel. And the fact that it's 2021 and he's still relevant speaks volumes of his character, because it takes, especially in this business, there's a lot more failures character-wise than there are successes. And sometimes it takes you overcoming a really shitty gimmick, i.e. Isaac Yankem DDS or a fake Diesel, before you can find Kane, and especially in this business where there's more people who have failed as characters than there are people who have succeeded as characters. The fact that a character like Ted DiBiase, when he was the $1 Million Man, was so prevalent back in the 80s, and here we are in 2021, and he's still prevalent now, speaks volumes of what kind of a wrestler he was and what kind of a character he was, and just the fact that he was able to establish the character the way he did. Ted DiBiase is an all-time great.
He is. All right, so let's get into a little bit more of AEW. I know we kind of touched on it.
Derpy.
I did enjoy. I honestly like.
I'm sorry, that was a Kenny Omega promo, by the way.
I know that they had a Kenny Omega promo, which I actually liked, because he
said nothing.
Oh, he completely crapped on Orange Cassidy. He's like, I could see myself in a main event spot against Pac, but against you, and like just crapping on Orange Cassidy. It was really good promo work where it's like, yes, I would now like to see Orange Cassidy go against Kenny Omega and beat the holy hell out of him while his hands are in his pockets. Like Kenny Omega like takes the sunglasses off of Orange Cassidy's face, like, I'm the one who started with sunglasses. You took this from me. And it's like, all right, yeah, whatever, Kenny Omega. But I thought it was a great way to build towards a match at Double or Nothing.
You would think that after all these years, the fact that he looks like a derp, that he would actually have gotten plastic surgery so he wouldn't look like a derp. But he's a derp. That's all Kenny Omega is a derp. He does nothing for me. He might be number 2 in everybody's program, but he's number 1 on PWI's top 500 wrestlers in the world.
Number 13? 14. But number 1 in Dave Meltzer's heart.
And in his somewhere else.
Talk
about
right. So we had SCU and a fatal four-way going against Jurassic Express, Varsity Blondes, and the acclaimed SCU still with the stipulation for themselves. If they lose again, they're through as a tag team. And if they win, so winner of this match, number one contendership, and has a match going against the Young Bucks. And I believe it's for next week. I don't think it's for Double or Nothing.
The Bucks of Youth.
The Bucks of Youth and SCU comes out on top here.
I got a feeling that Kazarian and Daniels are going to finally lose, and it's going to lead to them having a blow-up, and which is going to lead to us getting Frankie Kazarian and Chris Daniels one-on-one, and probably what will end up being Chris Daniels
at Double or Nothing.
Song, probably a Double or Nothing, if not probably at least All Out. And then I think Daniels will do the honors to Frankie Kazarian because
friends and everything. To be clear, it's like I don't think either one of them have a ton of wrestling time left. Like I know Daniels even like 5 years ago was saying, "Yeah, I wake up with problems every day, but I accept them because I've done exactly what I wanted to do with my life and my career." And I'm sure those aches and pains have not gotten better; they've gotten worse. And I know that he doubles as an agent, so he'll be able to concentrate on that more.
But the difference between, though, I will say this, is that Chris Daniels is almost 50 if he's not already 50. Frankie Kazarian is still in his early 40s, so Frankie Kazarian still has
some gas in the tank, but not.
I think Chris Daniels. I think we're going to see the end of Chris Daniels, and I could see if he doesn't put Kazarian over as like his doing the honors, and it's going to be Scorpio Sky, no question, because I think that would make a lot more sense too.
Well, Scorpio Sky is doing a thing with Darby Allin right now, so I think we're going to end up seeing that.
How old is Chris Daniels, sir?
Well, this is the wrong Chris Daniels that showed up in my search. So, anyway, so that was one storyline that they've continued. So, what else did we have?
Did Captain Constipated and his new faction come out on Wednesday?
Who's Captain Constipated?
QT Marshall. Looks like he's constipated.
He went against Cody, and Cody beat him.
Of course he did. So seriously, I'm sorry. I've been watching wrestling for how many years now? 33 years. God damn. I've been watching wrestling for 33 years.
I
have no idea who the fuck QT Marshall is. Who the fuck is he? Did he just like magically like morph one day? Did they just take like a bunch of fucking doofus looking people, molded them together and call them QT Marshall? Like who the fuck is QT Marshall? Like who is he? Who the fuck is QT Marshall? Like a lot of the guys that they brought into AEW make sense. Like Lance Archer makes sense. Darby Allin makes sense. Orange Cassidy makes sense.
Brian Cage
makes sense.
Is Christian Cage his brother? Christopher Daniels is 51.
Wow.
So
looks good for 51 though.
He does.
On the flip side though, but seriously though, where the fuck did QT Marshall just kind of just existed?
Right. So outside of that, we had Dr. Britt Baker beating quite easily Julia Hart in a match, but Britt obviously is meant to. All right, what is it, Brainless One?
Sorry, finish your. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, Britt, as we said, she's on her way up. She's on her way to winning the women's championship in a few weeks. So,
sorry. Frankie Kazarian will be 44. Not too long before you turn 44.
All right. Yeah.
His birthday's in August as well.
Okay.
11 days before yours. This is August 4th, 1977. So he'll be 44.
All right.
He looks really good for 44. A lot of these, and I'll tell you right now, like growing up as a kid, and I know I said that like I've been watching wrestling for 33 years now. God, I know I've been watching wrestling for 43 years, but like I used to remember back in the day, like once you hit a certain age, you weren't making it very much longer. Like 40 was like that's it. Once you hit 40, your career is winding down unless you're Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair. But like looking at it now, it's like MVP, I mean, yes, he just had that injury, but MVP was still performing pretty well for a guy who was 50. Same thing with Chris Jericho. Same thing with Chris Daniels. Kazarian at 44. AJ Styles at 43, I think. Sheamus is 42. Jeff Hardy is...
Matt Hardy's mid-40s right now.
Shelton Benjamin's almost 50.
And some of it has to come down to different training techniques. Some of it comes down to there's different supplements to make your body recover better.
And then in the situation with Chris Jericho, you're just a goat.
And then you got R-Truth, who,
another one. Yeah, R-Truth's almost 52, and
he looks great.
He looks tremendous for his age. I think that the way wrestling is now, that and the fact that not everybody's on steroids and coke anymore, you're seeing a lot of guys who are in their 40s who can still perform. Where it's like years ago when you got guys that were hitting like that, because I don't even think Austin was 40 when he retired.
No,
Austin
he wasn't.
No,
and that was early because of the neck.
But The Rock retired before he hit 40. I mean, John Cena was 41 when he finally retired. But granted, I would.
We all know Cena's going to come back for matches. Yeah. We all know The Rock's going to come back for at least one more match
with his cousin.
So I think, a lot of these guys, if you look at The Rock, he actually, as far as the tone in his body, he actually is in better shape as far as what his body looks like than when he was wrestling full time. Because, The Rock talked about it. It's like, hey, when you finished with a show, what were the places that were open? 7-Eleven and McDonald's and Wendy's. So that's what you had to eat. So, right now, The Rock, he has a nutritionist setting up his diet, and he has his own weight program. The dude wakes up at 4 a.m. to lift weights. And
I love his cheat meals because I was following him on Instagram for a while. I'm pretty sure I still do because he's The Rock. But watching his because his ultimate cheat meal is cookies, chocolate chip cookies, chocolate chip peanut butter cookies. Nice. And the things are fucking massive. And I'm I would love to have a cheat meal with The Rock. I would love to eat cookies with The Rock. I'd eat cookies with anybody.
Yeah.
That's just the point. But The Rock looks tremendous for a guy who's 46 or 47 now, I think.
He's older than that. I think he 49.
I don't think he's
so.
I think we're
because I don't think he's only a couple years older than me. I think he's closer to 7 or 8. Because when was he at Miami? 93. I think he was 93 because Warren Sapp was on the team.
He was a rookie in 1997 in WWE. That was 24 years ago.
So I'm going to say that he is closer to 50.
I'm going to say 46.
The Rock he turned 49 this past week.
Wow.
So,
okay.
May 2nd, 1972.
Damn. He's almost 50?
Yep.
He looks great for 49, though. Holy shit.
So,
he might be the greatest 49-year-old ever.
But, it all comes down to, nutrition. There are nutritionists now, and understanding what you're putting into your body. Look at a dude like DDP. It's he looks really good for his age.
He's in his 60s.
And, part of that's what he puts into his body. And, DDP yoga does not beat the hell out of your body.
Which is you look at Chris Jericho. He's another prime example of what DDP yoga has done for people.
Sheamus is another one.
And, Chris Jericho is 50, and he likes to drink his vodka, his Grey Goose, to be exact.
Yeah.
And he does the DDP yoga. So the fact that he's 50 and he's still performing, yes, he's had a couple of botches, but for crying out loud, the dude's been wrestling for 30 years and has put a lot of
mileage on there.
A lot of mileage. I would kill to do anything half as good as Chris Jericho wrestles at 50 when I'm 50.
And speaking of Jericho, the main event for AEW this week was the Blood and Guts match between the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle. It was clear going in. This was the star-making moment for MJF. He was already a star, but trying to put him up to that next level. And, in my view, this match delivered on basically every level. There were a couple of, the ending, some people I know were kind of crapping on in general. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. You could complain about the production. I'm not going to complain about what Chris Jericho did. I'm younger than he is, and I'm not going to take even if I'm going onto freaking crash pads 20 feet below, I don't know if I'm doing that. But
and I'm younger than you, and I can't see myself hitting fucking concrete.
well,
I don't even jump on my bed anymore.
Part of the problem was, for me, again, I loved this match. Like, it was a very old school throwback. Them like using a fork like Abdullah the Butcher, and you know, when they talk blood and guts, it's like there was blood and guts, and you know, they more or less sectioned it off as if it was like a War Games match, and it wasn't like you just get a pin or a submission and you win. It was submit or surrender, and you're like, who's going to give up? And the way they set it up was like MJF, he and Jericho on top of the cage. I loved the spot where Jericho had him in the lion tamer, or you know, walls of Jericho, whichever you prefer. On top of the cage, I thought it was a great spot, but then like MJF like kicking him in the nuts to get out of it, and pointing down to the inner circle said, if you don't surrender, I'm throwing him off. But the commentators specifically saying, throwing him down onto the concrete below, throwing him down onto the concrete, throwing him down onto the concrete, and trying to sell that it was really dangerous. If they didn't play it up like that and just
let him do what he had to do, I think it would have been.
And let him fall off, where you're not like on, well, he didn't fall on concrete. He fell on what looked kind of like concrete, but were crash pads. I'm sorry. Again, if you're wanting anyone, any age, to fall that hard and backwards on the concrete, I think AEW learned their lesson from Sammy Guevara versus Matt Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Hardy got knocked the hell out and shouldn't have continued that match, but he did. And even, you know, that was the end of the night. That was the end of the match. Nobody is going to take that bump that high.
I think the problem with that people had with it is it wasn't very far removed from when they had the Kenny Omega, John Moxley, where they had the bombs going off, and Eddie Kingston did everything in his power to really sell sparklers. And then it's, I think
it was like Paul Heyman with the magic tricks and Clash 13.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, I that's probably what it was. And if anything, you can't get mad at Chris Jericho. You can't. The man's not going to land on. He's not going to drop 20 feet in the air to concrete. He's got a family. He's got a wife and kids.
They could have done different camera angles
and different camera angles. So if you're going to get mad at somebody, get mad at the production team, and that's justifiable. If you want to be mad at just at the team. Don't get mad because Chris Jericho hit a pad instead of hitting fucking concrete. You know what? Jump off 20 feet in the air, hit concrete, and tell me how it feels, and then we could talk. Okay.
Even if you like are set up for the landing, that ain't going to be fun.
Right.
So I applaud Chris Jericho for even taking that bump.
Yes.
It reminded me somewhat of Rikishi taking the bump off the Hell in the Cell into like the truck all those years ago, where he just kind of fell back. It's like,
I remember that.
And you know, again, we kind of brought it up earlier, where when Miz suplexed Shane McMahon, you know, 25 feet up into crash pads, there weren't people complaining about that. There weren't people complaining about when Jeff Hardy, you know, did the Swanton bomb onto what was crash pads down below. But I don't know, for whatever reason, it's like, I guess it ruined the illusion a little bit. But again, like,
and like I said, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that it wasn't too long
removed from that
when
botch.
They had that botch at the end of the John Moxley and Kenny Omega
in the death match, or the barbed wire, exploding barbed wire death match.
And my favorite part about that was Kenny Omega was so proud of that match, and it was a fucking dud. I love the fact about that, because I really hate fucking Kenny Omega. There's not a wrestler I hate more in the history of professional wrestling than I hate Kenny Omega.
Great.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
But again, overall, this match delivered. It made MJF, you know, MJF has been more of this like prissy guy who's had everything handed to him, where this one, he got himself dirty and, you know, said, all right, well, I'll spare him if you surrender. They surrender, and as a heel, as he should do, throws the dude off the top anyway. And he's on the top, bloody, and you kind of see him smiling about it. So I think this adds a toughness to his character so that moving forward, he's not just not the dude wearing the scarf and who gets everything handed to him and who he's rounding up this character.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to Triple H back in the day where he was just, the snob from
Greenwich.
He was Greenwich too? Okay.
Yeah, he was Greenwich from Connecticut. I remember that because I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, we finally get somebody from the state of Connecticut and is this fucking snooty wad fuck? Okay, great.
But, it was like that for when Triple H went against Foley in the street fight when he went against Cactus Jack.
Yeah. And
that elevated Triple H to something different. Where he had a toughness to it.
It was the same thing with Edge at WrestleMania when he fought Mick Foley in that match where he went through the flaming table.
Yeah,
you
elevated the toughness.
Yeah, exactly.
Of him, and again, put a different spin on the character. Edge was no longer just a pretty boy.
And like you were just talking about the whole Miz and Shane McMahon match from a couple of years ago at WrestleMania, because the one caveat about the Miz was the fact that he had this reputation where he wasn't willing to take those bumps. He was a safe worker for himself because he just did whatever he could to not get injured. Well, then he finally gets in this match with Shane McMahon, and he actually goes out there and has it was a really good match. And like the Miz taking those bumps, as much as I love the Miz, I got so much more respect for him now after that match because he was willing to take bumps like the way he was. Because you know what Shane McMahon's going to do. Shane McMahon's been taking bumps like this almost his entire life, sure. Getting dropping from the top of the Titantron. The fact that he had the failed going through the glass against fucking Kurt Angle at King of the Ring 2001. I think it was
21.
2001. And just like Shane McMahon is just that guy, and he has earned a lot of respect of a lot of fans over the years, and it's deserving.
And the thing with the Miz though, like I think when he was the WWE champion his first time around, which ended up, where he beat John Cena at WrestleMania 27. Like they had the match where they were trying to show more of his toughness when he went against John Morrison in the no holds barred match or no DQ or whatever it was. I love that match. If you haven't seen it, make sure you go back and check that match out because they were trying to show more of a toughness in Miz, but part of the problem there was I love John Morrison. He's one of my favorites ever, but John Morrison also did not have like this huge element of toughness, but you watch this match and it was freaking brutal.
Yeah.
But it was great with both of them, but there's a part where Morrison goes for Starship Pain outside the ring and like Miz ends up winning the match. Again, great hard-hitting affair, but they're trying to get Miz to seem more of a, tough guy. But, even all these years later, you still don't see Miz as a tough guy. But hopefully this is the start of MJF showing more of that grit and toughness, not just being, a prissy, pretty boy who hates everybody.
Yeah.
And is trying to use everybody for his own gain.
A pretty boy who hates everybody. Damn, you hit me the nail right in the head right there with me. Shit.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm not a prissy. So I am a
anyway.
Boy.
But last thing I think we'll discuss before we get to our good, bad, and brainless, Dark Side of the Ring making its return. And they had the first episode of The Life of Brian Pillman. I thought it was a really great setup for what I know the second half. It's going to be
dark.
Yes, very dark.
You're going to see the dark side of Brian Pillman.
And, just hearing about kind of how chaotic his life was behind the scenes, like a whole bunch of different women. But the fact that he actually is according to all his kids, was a fantastic father.
Which I can't be mad about that. As long as you're like,
trying to take care of your kids.
Yeah.
So, but it definitely seemed like his life just got out of control. It was a lot for him to handle, and like, hey, I got 5 kids to feed. I've got a wife. I've got to do something to make myself more marketable. In the way that he shanghaied Eric Bischoff, and Bischoff was trying to say, "Oh, I was in on it," because Bischoff is trying to save face to make it look like he wasn't an idiot.
Yeah.
When all this happened, I'm going to say that Bischoff had no idea that this was what Pillman 100%. Was doing, but he just doesn't want to look again like an idiot. But it just stinks that Pillman ended up doing some silly things in his life with like driving that Humvee after what I think they said he was pretty drunk and messed up his ankle, and that kind of and they haven't really gotten into this yet, but that short-circuited his WWF run. It could have been something more, and he could have built towards like, him versus Steve Austin. I mean, they could have brought back the Hollywood Blonde stuff, like about them having a long history. I mean, the fact that, they had that part on Raw where they go off the air and you don't know what the heck happened.
When Pillman pulls the gun as Austin's breaking into his house. Oh, yeah. It was.
But, I mean, that could have, like, Pillman could have gotten to that next level, but he just wasn't the same performer after he messed up his ankle, because he was a great high flyer, but also could brawl if you wanted him to. And there was so much more that could have been there. And the folks who produce Dark Side of the Ring do such a great job of storytelling. It's like, I'm interested to see how they do it, but I also know it's just going to be a sad and terrible ending. I mean, it's Dark Side of the Ring. So kudos for them for getting all these interviews for all these different people who we haven't more or less heard from for, in some ways, decades. But, these are some of the stories that, in my view, should have been told a long time ago.
Agreed.
And it certainly makes you look at, like, I really like this. I like professional wrestling, but dang.
Yeah.
Dang. So,
really quick before we do go into our good, bad, and brainless, there's something I actually forgot about until a few minutes ago, where I kind of was triggered like into my brain. There is another actually potential free agent that could make it a jump to either WWE or AEW that not a lot of people in the wrestling industry might know about, but she is a pretty big young up and coming star that they have. And not even in like the wrestling aspect, because she was a wrestler, but she had I think she has like some knee problems. So she's been kind of like doing more of like the managing and all that stuff. And in PWI actually named her number 2 in wrestling influencers, people who kind of do stuff like in front of the camera that isn't like in the ring. She was second only to Paul Heyman, which speaks volumes to this. She was also a former executive producer, the first female executive producer in professional wrestling. She was doing it for Major League Wrestling, and that happens to be one Selena De La Rente, who this past weekend had her last appearance, or it was this past week, where she had her last appearance with Major League Wrestling, where she was kind of written off and was replaced on the show by the guy who was actually doing Lucha Underground.
Dario Cueto,
that's his name. So Dario Cueto is now going to be taking over her role, Selena De La Rente's role with MLW. And I know a lot of people were talking about the possibility that WWE was going to actually join forces with MLW as a partnership type of thing, but that seemed like it kind of fell apart. Selena De La Rente, I think, is going to be a tremendous addition to whatever company she works for, whether she goes to WWE or if she goes to AEW. I think she's going to be an excellent addition. I don't even think she's even 25 yet. I think she's like 23, 24. Very, very, very good at what she does. She plays the role very well. And the fact that she does have some background in like actually doing the producing part of it speaks volumes too. I think she is going to be a great addition, whether it's WWE or AEW, because I know a lot of people want to see her at one of those. I like to see her at AEW or WWE, maybe start off at NXT. I think she would be a good manager for somebody like Angel Garza or even Humberto Carrillo. Although on the flip side, I also like to see her in AEW managing Pride and Powerful. But we'll see where she goes. I'm excited. I'm a fan of hers, and I think that she would be an excellent addition to whatever wrestling organization actually signs her.
All right. Yeah. All right.
So, shall we do our good, our bad,
absolutely,
and our brainless?
Absolutely.
All righty. So, what was your good for this week, Cousin Jay?
I'm going with the Blood and Guts match. As much as the ending was like, some people didn't like it. For what they needed to do, they delivered as far as getting MJF to that next level and again, doing some reshaping to his character. I thought the match was entertaining as all heck, and kudos for them for pulling it off. Okay.
My good this week goes to the fact that Cesaro finally gets his first ever World Championship match in WWE/NXT since he signed from Ring of Honor probably about almost 10 years ago. He has never had a one-on-one match for the WWE or Universal Championship or the World Heavyweight title when that was still a thing. And he did so in a match last night where if he beat Seth Rollins, he was going to be #1 contender. His match last night with Rollins was awesome.
And involving the Usos in it and them then upsetting the tribal chief, it was great.
Oh, it was great storytelling. That in its own right, the match itself and like the story that it told with the Usos being involved and pissing off Roman Reigns would have been good on its own. But the fact that Cesaro, who is well deserving of a world title shot, is getting a shot at the Universal Championship at WrestleMania Backlash. So for me, no brainer. That's my good for this week.
All right. Before we go much further, if you're out there, what are your thoughts on Roman Reigns' new music?
I hate it. It's not Durner.
I'm okay with it, and I think it's going to grow on me.
I think it will eventually grow on me, but as of right now, I already miss Durner. Because Roman Reigns' hair isn't as wet if it's got the new song.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
All right, I'll take that.
All right. So what is your bad for this week?
My bad for this week is the hot potatoing of the NXT Women's title. As much as I'm fine with the way winning the title, it's just how it's been treated since it was brought into existence, only a couple of months ago. They could have done a better job of doing this. I think the way are well deserving of holding the championship, but they could have just done a better overall job with that. So that's my bad for this week.
Okay. Damn. Well, you kind of took my bad for this week.
Yeah.
So it's either I stick with what you went with your bad as my bad because I
that our brainless is going to be
on the same page. So I'm going to say for my bad, I'm going to say that other than the Rollins and Cesaro match last night on SmackDown, the rest of the show was kind of minus that match and the whole subsequent Usos and Roman Reigns and Teddy Long. The rest of the show last night on SmackDown was just shit. Like I was explaining to Nicole, I was like, it feels like they did a wonderful match and a good promo to start the show with the 10 bell salute from Paul Heyman to Daniel Bryan and all that stuff and how they were celebrating that and having Jimmy Uso come out. I thought that was great. Cesaro kind of interrupting, Rollins attacking him, beating him up a little bit before the match. Cesaro still going over, winning the match the way it did. That's a great way to start SmackDown. The rest of the show was just, it felt like an hour plus long cigarette/bathroom break. That's exactly what I felt about it last night.
Yeah.
It was bad. So for me, that was my bad for this week. And that's the second week in a row where there was one really good aspect of SmackDown and the rest of the show was drizzle shits. So.
All right.
Do I even have to ask you, just what's your brainless, Jay?
My brainless is the returning Eva Marie. Now, I'm both like petrified and extremely excited at the same time because I know her matches are going to be garbage. How long? I remember The Rock when she was in there before. Like, The Rock applauded her for her work ethic. I'm sure she has a spectacular work ethic, but sometimes people just don't freaking get it. And she never got, like, really even an ounce better in the ring during her whole time at WWE. So I'm excited to see how terrible her matches are. But, like, she's terrible. She's terrible. But I guess the fact that we're reacting to her, like, that's what WWE wants. They want a reaction. If they want us to react how terrible she is, and like, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, is she going to be like Baron Corbin from a couple of years ago where he couldn't cut a promo and was, satisfactory in the ring? I mean, if she can cut a promo and annoy the hell out of people and be substandard in the ring, we'll see. But, I'm waiting for that day where Nia Jax goes against her in a match and both of them injure each other. I don't want to see people get hurt, but that's what's going to happen. They're going to injure each other because they both suck.
And yes, Eva Marie's return to Monday Night Raw and WWE this past Monday is my brainless. And if you want to know how I really feel about this whole situation, go back to any previous episode of
about
the
Eva Marie.
Just talk about Eva Marie from the first season of the F and Marks podcast, where you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N, MARKS, the F and Marks. And you can like, follow, and subscribe to us. And if you do that, we will do the same back. That has always been our mantra.
And one other thing that I'm going to attempt to do is we started putting, like, I got one episode onto Spotify and the Google Podcasts and the Apple Podcasts, but ran into a roadblock. I think I have actually found a way around the roadblock. So hopefully,
roadblock. Let me write that down. That's another shit gimmick for WCW. Wow. Yes. Roadblock. I love it.
So hopefully pretty soon I will have that rectified and you will be able to actually take us on the go with you and listen to us while you're on the road. So hopefully that will be taken care of soon, but you also catch us every week on the All Elite Marks page and set up those notifications so that when we go live, you will know and get notified so you could join the conversation. So I guess that does it for us for this week for the F and Marks podcast.
I think you're right.
Wait.
Hold on. There's one thing left.
What's that, Brainless One?
It's because there's only one person in the history of this podcast to have appeared at all 220 episodes of this podcast.
Yeah?
It's not you, it's not me, and it's not Petey. That's because today, May 8th of 2021, at an astonishing 2,295 days after Mark All America is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble.
Yeah. All right.
So for episode 220 of the F and Marks podcast,
I'm Jay.
and I am the Brainless One. Make sure you mark out
With your guac out. All right. We'll see ya, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.
Have a good week, and make sure you tune in for Brainless One's going to be coming up with something to put on Instagram.
It'll be a new tournament, and if, like I said, if anybody has any ideas of what kind of tournaments you want to see, let me know. I am doing the shitty WCW gimmicks one. I am going to do, is one of the most debated upon things, is the greatest tag teams of all time tournament, so that the Dudley Boys can actually win something over LOD. But yeah, I'm going to have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah.
So,
all right. We'll catch you all later.
thanks for tuning in.
See you.
Of course, Nicholson, something about the fucking Chinese rocket thing.